Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And here's your host, Alan Mosley.
Welcome back for... what episode are we up to? We got to do a really better job. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to finish that sentence. I'm just going to say we should just do a better job.
Yeah, we should just do a better job.
Just do a better job.
Yep, sorry.
So,
I don't know. I think this is 8, I think it's 8.
I think there's a mysterious episode 8 out there in the ether somewhere.
You're right. There is one.
That's going to be a bonus episode.
Yeah, okay. We'll do a bonus episode. We did do an episode right before Christmas that did not get out for whatever reason, but...
It was our holiday spectacular.
Yes, it was our holiday special. And well,
I look forward to... Maybe this is going to be our thing. We're going to release our holiday spectacular March 3rd.
Okay, that's fine with me.
That's fine.
I can
there you
do
go.
That. That's easy to do.
So look forward to our bonus episode, the Holiday Spectacular, coming in March.
That wasn't during the holidays.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So welcome back. This is the Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley. And I think we've got a pretty good list of things to discuss here today. Just hold it up.
Oh, yeah. Block yourself. So no one can see you.
I wanted to start off with just a little bit of a chat back and forth.
Okay.
And we can kind of bounce this together before we get into the actual articles I have pulled up. I actually have written down opening monologue like I'm a talk show host. It's weird.
You are.
So anyway, I heard an interesting phrase. It's something that we've touched on the show before, but I actually heard it kind of. You know how sometimes things can take a better identity when you hear a phrase that you really feel like that's the new name. That's the label for what that is.
Yes.
And the phrase I'm talking about is personal preferences versus principles.
Okay.
And we all have personal preferences.
Yeah,
I mean, how boring would life be if you didn't
like in underwear?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you prefer boxers or briefs or cereal, Captain Crunch or Frosted Flakes.
I like how that was your immediate first thought is, well, I have personal preferences in underwear.
Yeah.
And
who doesn't?
And after that, you're like, I can't think of anything else.
You're not you gotta. It's just dude thing, I mean.
Well, the reason I bring that up is that something I like to talk about a lot, and we've discussed on the show before, is there's so many different issues out there, so many different political issues, and it's 2018, so the 2018 election cycle is right around the corner. Oh,
here
totally
we go
not.
again.
Yeah, here we go. And there's going to be your hot button topics, and everyone's deciding where they fall on the different issues, and you'll hear people discuss left versus right and liberal or conservative, but labels are tricky because when people construe what those labels mean or stand for, or when some people identify as one thing, but then what they vote on or stand up for doesn't really reflect traditionally the labels just get really foggy. But what I like to talk about is that, we believe in liberty and we believe in the principles of liberty, of, free markets, of non-aggression, of, peace and tolerance. And it's a beautiful thing to believe in principles like that. Because when it comes time for an election, or say, goodness forbid, you ever got a wild hair and you decided you were going to run yourself, and you thought, well, that means I have to come up with a platform. I have to make a list of where I fall on every issue, and you got to put that out there. I feel bad for the people, I genuinely do, that for every single issue out there today, they literally are having to sit down and think really hard about where they fall on every single issue, one at a time. Either because they genuinely don't know, or they just don't have any sort of guidance to help them make a decision one way or the other.
Right.
And I think what happens then is, and I genuinely feel like this is horrible to say, but I feel like most people are this way. I feel like most people, if you discuss one issue and then the next and the next, they could be all over the place.
So you're saying not grounded in their convictions.
There's no principles there.
Right.
But when you believe in certain principles, if you believe in non-aggression, if you believe in individualism and free markets and tolerance and these things that we discuss all the time, then all of a sudden it becomes much easier to determine where you fall on various issues. If an issue comes up and you say, well, am I left on this? Am I right on this? Am I conservative or liberal on this? You don't worry about all that. You just say, well, how do my principles that guide my life and my decision-making fall on this issue? And that's a really important distinction to make, and I think it's a distinction that we don't do a good enough job as a society of discussing. Because, and once again, and this is not to demonize personal preference. It's just simply to point out that there's a deeper and more, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a more firm and stable way of determining your feelings and your stances on things when you have rooted in principle how you make those decisions, as opposed to someone just, as opposed to taking a survey.
Yeah.
Those surveys where you have like most likely and least likely,
Yes.
1 through 5 or 10 of how do you feel about this, this, or this. I don't have a problem with those surveys. And you know why I can answer those surveys really fast? Because I know where I stand.
Right.
How do I know where I stand? How do I know
Right.
where I stand on every single, well, and I don't. Well, there's always going to be gray areas.
Yeah.
But more often than not, I know where I stand on issues without having to do a ton of extra research or go listen to a million opinions. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
Because I have those principles by which I live by and I believe in.
Right.
And so I apply those principles to whatever the problem or the question or the issue is, and there you go.
Right. I got it.
And there you go.
Yeah. And you should be grounded in your convictions and in your principles.
Yeah.
And you should know what those are.
And I guess not to throw shade, as the young people say, at any particular person, but I guess the other side of this coin, of this little monologue, is those people who don't have those principles, those people who can have a stance that seems conservative on one stance or seems liberal on another, or in one election cycle they support one initiative and then magically in another election cycle they don't,
right,
or vice versa. All that tells me is that guy has no principles,
right, or he's unsure of his principles.
Yes. And that's not to say you can't change your mind. I've seen it both ways. It's funny, especially in the political sphere. If you're a politician and you never change your mind, then they'll say you're stubborn. If you change your mind, then you're a flip flopper. You know how that goes. So there's always going to be people who can criticize you.
Right.
But with that said, I feel like more often than not, you can feel confident that you stand on the side of right when you have those guiding principles, and you stand on those principles, and you make decisions on those principles, and you side on issues based on those principles, come what may, and that's it.
I agree. Nobody likes a wishy-washy wishy-washer.
Yeah, I mean, nobody likes wishy-washiness, and goodness, I mean, we could do episodes until the end of time pointing out the hypocrisies of, this random representative flip-flopped on this and that and the other, or maybe more so when a certain administration was in power, I was against something, and when a different administration is in power, I'm magically for it. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the episode. But once again, all that tells me is all of those people have no principles. And I'm not so sure I want people with no principles in elected positions.
Right. Well, unfortunately, they're there.
They're there. Well, they're there.
But also, you have to understand, I think sometimes when people get into office, they have solid, grounded principles, and they're strong and they believe in their convictions, but it's the office itself that changes your convictions. Have you ever wondered, when a president gets into office, they go in thinking a certain way or knowing certain things, but then they learn things they didn't know existed. I mean, and they go off.
Are you talking about the aliens?
Well, it could be aliens, or it could be, alliances or whatever, business deals with countries. Who knows what the heck they've got? They learn that changes their fundamental way of thinking. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe that's some of the things that happen with some of them. But like I said, like you're saying, we like our leaders to have solid principles, and they don't waver from them.
If I was going to be, I don't want to say a swear word. I was thinking hard ASS. But if I was going to be really, really resolute on this point, I would say that you're still talking about people that have no principles. Because if you're elected president and you genuinely have principles, this is what I ran on and I was elected on this, and these are the principles by which I live, then when you start to have all of this pressure in Washington, all of the bureaucrats and the lobbyists and all the different people from different departments that are all saying, well, but you got to work with us. You got to have quid pro quo. You got to give a little, to take a little on this, and this. Sure. I'm sure that a Politico would make the argument that, well, but Alan, if you're the guy who gets elected and then you don't do any of that, you don't play ball with anybody, then that just means you won't get anything accomplished and you'll just basically sit in an empty office for 4 years doing nothing, and then you'll be voted out. My answer to that is maybe, but actually, I think that'd probably be about the best president we've had in a long time. If you just went up
Somebody
there,
who sticks to their guns.
if you went up there for 4 years, did nothing,
Yeah.
did not pass anything, and then just walked out of there having done everything in your power to cut as much as possible, expand as little or none, not sign off on anything that you didn't approve of, and then you walked out of there having, and that's it, and that's the end of your. That would automatically make you the best president in my lifetime, and I mean that.
Right.
I genuinely do.
Right. So, but you're not against compromise.
Well, I'm against compromise. I think we've had too much compromise. I think when you have like you want to talk about when you see something comes up in the news that they say it has bipartisan support.
Right.
If there's one thing I'm terrified of in this world, it's anything that has bipartisan support. Because what you're really telling me is that there's enough people to agree with it to shove it through, and God only knows what's going to happen next.
Right.
I think we've had way too much compromise. I would make the argument that because we haven't elected enough representatives who have the principles and have the stance and who can manage to get reelected, unfortunately, to say, no, I'm not, if I ran on this platform, then I'm going to vote no on everything that's not on this platform and only vote yes on the things on this platform. And that sounds like you're being a jerk. And that sounds like there's no compromise. What has compromise gotten us? We have a government that is $20 trillion in debt that is blowing even greater holes in that debt.
Yeah.
And it happened under Democrat watch. It happened under Republican watch. How did that happen? Probably a lot of compromise. I'm done with compromise.
Yeah.
I think if you want to compromise on where we're going to go grab lunch, that's a compromise. Yeah. If the compromise is, should we add to the $20 trillion debt? No, I'm not going to compromise. The answer is no.
Right. Because we don't need to be more in debt.
So take your compromise and shove it, Blake. That's what I say about your compromise. So anyway,
I feel so defeated.
I know. I'm so sorry. You look so good too. You were like, hey, let's compromise, and I said no compromise.
No compromise.
So anyway, the first thing I want to get to today, and we'll switch over to it here in a second. Have you watched any of the Olympics?
Actually, I've been really surprised because I've had a hard time finding the Olympics on television. Normally, when the Olympics are on, they dominate. Mm-hmm. They dominate the major networks. But for some reason, I have been having a really difficult time finding them. Like I have to go way up high in the channels to find them, and that makes me wonder
what network has the Olympics. Is it NBC?
I think so. I know that on the Today Show this morning they were broadcasting from South Korea. And that tells me that they're the ones that are kind of pretty much heading up the whole thing. But that the channel, the network just hasn't been populated heavily with events that are taking place, and that's a little odd this time.
I do have to say that I knew that the Olympics were coming up because I heard people talking about the Olympics and the ceremonies coming up, blah blah blah. But yeah, I kind of agree with you that I have no idea anything that's happened in the Olympics this year.
There's usually a lot more fanfare, but for some reason it seems almost subdued.
When the first events were taking place, I didn't realize it had started yet. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah.
Like now I know.
Yeah.
But it had been going on for a day or two before it was, they started?
I do know that as of this morning, Germany's got more gold than we do, but we're a close second, so.
Okay, well.
And we had a 17-year-old who won gold in the, I guess it's the ramping, where you do like on the skateboard looking snowboard thing.
Doesn't it just make you feel so good about yourself when you see the teenagers who have Olympic gold medals and here I am just ugh.
I'm not down on it.
Whatever.
I don't know. I can't skate to save my life, so she can go and kick butt, be awesome, and go USA.
Anyway, what I wanted to bring up with is that, of course, everybody's talked about in the news that the games are in South Korea this year. North Korea wanted to be involved with the games, wanted to have some sort of either dual hosting or combination thereof. Which it's worth pointing out just real quick before we go further. The games had been in South Korea before, and North Korea wanted to co-host. And when they were told no, they blew up a passenger plane and killed a bunch of people. Okay. So that just to kind of give you an early taste of what we think about North Korea and some of the nonsense going on in the media right now. But what I wanted to talk about is have you seen anything in the news about this late Kim Jong Un's?
You want me to put this up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
and
put this up. There it is.
Yeah,
you're up.
So Kim Yo Jong is Kim Jong Un's sister, and
Right.
that's her in the picture behind Mike Pence. And this comes from us from townhall.com by the author is Chris Reeves. It was published on the 12th. And it's an article discussing how American media literally fawned over North Korea's propaganda minister. I don't know if you noticed this. I definitely did. There's been all sorts of warring going back and forth on Twitter about this as well. Some of our major news networks, the Times, the Post, AP, Reuters, ABC, NBC, CNN, they've been publishing all of this, just what I would consider to be nonsense. And they've got a few of the tweets here kind of going through it. So CNN had Kim Jong-un's sister is stealing the show at the Winter Olympics.
Oh, please.
And they have the Washington Post. The Ivanka Trump of North Korea captivates
Wow.
people in the South. And then North Korea heads for diplomacy gold medal at Olympics, analysts say. I don't know who these moronic analysts are.
Hold on.
But,
I just want to say, propaganda minister.
yeah.
Propaganda minister.
She's the propaganda minister for a murderous regime that has a nation of slaves, of
Right.
27 million slaves. This is a country that, as I mentioned before, they wanted to co-host the Olympics. When they were told no, they just murdered a bunch of people on an airplane. That's what got them the terrorist nation designation once before was that action.
Right.
This is a country where no one is allowed to leave. People are starving. And one of the reasons why so few people do escape is because if you have any friends, or if you have any family back at home, if you escape, they will kill your family.
Yeah, all
That's
of them.
that's what North Korea is. And so
Right.
when you see this garbage, when you see our American major media outlets saying things like how she's stealing the show and that they're captivating the South and they're winning the diplomacy gold medal, that is disgusting. That is an embarrassment to journalism. I mean, at this point, why even bother saying embarrassment to journalism? We have no journalism anymore.
Right.
It's
Right.
If you want journalism, you have to look to independent sources
They're
because
writing
this
a
is
narrative.
garbage.
Yeah, they're writing a narrative.
I mean, absolutely, is that there is absolutely this concerted effort by major media in this country to push this, and I'm not against reconciliation between North and South Korea. We
Right.
would all love that to happen.
Absolutely.
And I'm certainly not pro-war. I don't want our military to go get involved in North Korea. That's not our place. I don't feel like that's the right thing to do. But to turn around and then push this narrative that takes away from how barbarous and murderous and terrible. I mean, just every vile word you can think of. I mean, whatever phrase you want to use, everybody calls each other a Nazi today when they're trying to think of a bad word. But like whatever the worst word you can think of is, that's the Kim dynasty in North Korea.
Right.
That's what that is.
And one kind of American, modern-looking woman comes onto the scene, and all of a sudden the whole world is enamored with her. Well, the word propaganda, look it up. They're really succeeding in their propaganda. So I'm not buying it. Don't buy it. Okay?
So as a counter to that statement, he also has some tweets here by Michael Malice. We've discussed Michael Malice on the show before. He's the author of the book, Dear Reader, The Unauthorized Autobiography of Kim Jong-il. It's a great book. He's sort of become like our modern day expert on the trials of North Korea. And he saw this media onslaught of pro North Korean press, basically. Right. And he had said, the corporate press has been harder on the Sex and the City girls than the Kim dynasty today. Mm-hmm. He said, reminder that CNN was more hostile to an American citizen who made a wrestling gif than to a representative of the most evil government on earth.
Yep.
That's quite a statement. Mm-hmm. He also said, so just to be clear, Russian collusion is treason, but North Korean collusion, that's journalism. And then there's members of the corporate press who think Kim Jong-jung's title is Khaleesi. That's funny. That's a reference to Game of Thrones. I don't know if you're a big Game of Thrones watcher.
Never watched it.
What's wrong with you?
I'm married with kids, man. Come on.
Yeah. You mean Game of Thrones isn't natural, like 4-year-old TV? Or
no, dude, no. The only thing that plays in my house is, PBS and Nickelodeon, dude.
I don't know if they'll ever pick up Game of Thrones.
I haven't seen an adult show since 2008.
So anyway, the reason why I wanted to bring this up today, I know there's been a lot of talk, a lot of to do about this media back and forth, and another reason I wanted to bring it up is I've seen some infighting between a lot of different liberty-minded people and libertarians. Imagine that, infighting between libertarians. There's been a lot of that recently, but there's been a lot of infighting between people who they're so anti-war that they feel like saying something negative about people is sort of paving the way towards military action. Therefore, they don't broach the subject. And I can understand what they're trying to say. On the other side, there's the people who are anti-dictatorial monsters, anti-Kim Dynasty, anti-North Korea. And so they're going to say those things. And it's not that they're necessarily saying, and therefore we should go start a war. They're just saying, I'm going to point out evil where it is, and I'm going to talk about it.
Right.
And I don't want to mention a lot of names. I know, of course, Michael Malice. He was on Stefan Molyneux's show, and they were talking about North Korea and some of the media reaction. And I know kind of on the other side of the coin, there's people like Daniel McAdams, who's the president of the Ron Paul Institute, and they kind of had a little bit of a Twitter beef there, talking about Daniel McAdams was basically saying you're acting like a neocon because you're kind of paving the road towards war, and then they're saying, how can you accuse me of being pro-war by just simply pointing out these people are monsters? I guess I fall more on the side of I will speak truth to things, and the truth is that they're monsters. They're a murderous regime, and they've made an entire nation of slaves. And I will talk about and that's not to say therefore we should go send in troops or bomb any. I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's our responsibility. I'm just simply saying it is what it is. I will point that out. I will discuss it.
Right.
And I will condemn people like our major media who will then turn around and make these fluffy little fluff posts and pretty little comments about,
oh, they're not all bad.
Yeah. Look how cute she is, and oh gosh, they're cheerleaders. They were making a big deal about their cheerleaders. Of course, what none of there's all these different posts on all these different major media networks about look their cheerleaders are stealing the show, and look at how awesome they are. And I was like, I haven't seen a single one of those articles also contain, oh, but by the way, if they don't do this, they'll murder their whole family.
Right.
Oh, by the way, if they try to defect while they're down there, we'll kill everyone they know and love. They conveniently left that part out of the article. So it just makes me sick. I mean, like I said, I don't want this show to be a show where every single week we talk about something stupid our mainstream media did. Because we could. Yeah, we could find stupid stuff our mainstream media. I mean, that could be a 7-day-a-week show for us.
Yeah, every day.
But this one in particular really made me disgusted. And
it should.
Yeah,
it should disgust everyone. It's great. I mean, that she's got this sister that looks all, modern and all this stuff, and she comes out and she's sport. If the whole state, if North Korea was really making honest, truthful efforts in reunification, in, taking the grasp off the iron fist off of their people and trying honestly to try to make their country a safer, better place for their people, we'd be believing it. But, just throwing a figurehead out there and making her look cute and then everybody buying it, come on, people.
Well, it's funny. It's worth different analogies and whatnot. I didn't pull it up here. I wish I had. Is that people have made the analogy of painting North Korea in any type of positive life, or the Kims in any type of positive life, is the same thing as saying, oh, well, Hitler wasn't all bad, and and Germany had the Olympics, and well, wasn't that nice? What gracious hosts they are. You wouldn't say that. You would be rightly condemned by everyone, and rightly so, for making any positive statements about such a horrible person. However, wouldn't you know, someone had actually pulled up a mid-1930s article from the New York Times that was talking about, well, Hitler just likes to rest up on his mountaintop and think, do some writing and think about. I was thinking that. So sure enough, they did do that. There was mainstream media at the time doing somewhat fluffy, positive remarks
Yep.
towards what, of course, we ultimately discovered to be a murderous, horrible person, which it wasn't exactly even a secret anymore by then either.
Right.
It just goes. I don't know. There's just some sort of. It's hard to put your finger on it and say, I know a lot of right-wing people would say, oh, that's just the liberal media, but I see trash on Fox News too.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a lot of conservatives that would say that that's not conservative either, that they're all leftists because they're statists and big government and whatever.
Sure.
But there is absolutely a sickness in a lot of our major institutions. There's
Right.
absolutely a sickness in media and in journalism in this country that you can see all those tweets that I just showed you, that you can have all, and once again, it's not like it's just one network made a faux pas and we move on.
Right.
It's all the
All
different
of them.
major networks
Yeah.
are writing all these fluff pieces.
And it's getting hard to trust what they say anymore, and it's difficult to discern the truth from the narrative, from what they're trying to make you think is really going on. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we going to do, man? I mean, where are we going to get our news? Where can we trust it? Because it's just not trustworthy anymore.
Well, where you're going to get your news is the gold standard.
That's right.
Well,
We know what we're talking about.
well,
'cause we're just like you.
Well, what it goes to show you is that you have to be discerning. You have to get your news from multiple sources, and once again, it's about those principles that we opened the show
Yeah.
with. That if your principles tell you that Kim Jong-un is a monster, and that regime are monsters, and you won't stomach a single positive remark about
Right. You're not going to be swayed
about
by
those
somebody,
murderers.
Yeah, you're not going to be swayed by somebody's cabin in the woods.
Yeah, then when
or
a
cute
news
little
outlet
sister.
then when a news outlet does publish something like that, then all right, I'm
Yeah.
not going to listen to that anymore
Yeah.
because that's where where
Right.
those principles help you. So I just want to conclude that section really quick by saying, as I said, I saw some arguments kind of in our liberty community about this topic, and I don't, I want to be friends with everybody. I would love to have every different public figure in our libertarian community on this show to talk with us and not feel combative and
Right.
not feel like we couldn't find common ground. Because I feel like it's one of those things where 90% we're totally on common ground, or once again on principle we support the same things and want the same things, but sometimes the message can get a little muddy. Sometimes things can be misconstrued, or the path to achieving those goals can be different. And we have a bad habit, and I've been guilty of this in the past. We have a bad habit of when there's even a 1% disagreement, we have to go to war. We have to fight. We have to yell and curse at each other. And now I have to condemn everything you've ever written.
Yeah.
And I don't support your platform in any way because, that's that crazy guy who thinks, this about North Korea or thinks this about war or whatever. And you think that, well, don't get me wrong. There should definitely be core issues that you're tight on.
Right.
But if you can't find common ground to work with someone in the cause of liberty who is in your camp on one issue or the next, because on issue number 97 you disagree, I think you will quickly find that you have no allies at all. Very quickly you will find there is no one in your camp, because honestly, plenty of people can subscribe to the same philosophy. But when you really break that down into every single little issue, and not just that, but the means by which to achieve every single goal, come on. How many people are going to have the exact same view as you?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own way of looking at things. And
Well, it also reminded me, too, we had a little bit of an exchange on Facebook this past week as well that was kind of along the same lines, sort of trying to calm the waters a little bit, just basically saying that there are good people out there who don't believe in all the things we believe in, and it would be a shame if you can't develop relationships with good people because of those disagreements.
Right.
And vice versa. I'm sure you'll find people who agree with you on a variety of different issues. They may not be great people. And there's nothing wrong with removing bad people from your life. And
Yeah, that's a whole nother episode.
yeah, it's a whole nother episode. And being reluctant to do it just because you both agree that we shouldn't, we both agree taxation is theft, but I think you're a total jerk. Well, if you're a total jerk, I'm not gonna.
It's got nothing to do with taxation is theft.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, if for the handful of people that might see this episode that know what I'm talking about and some of the infighting is quit it.
Yeah.
Just stop. I mean, people who believe in libertarianism, and goodness knows people who are willing to go out and put votes in the ballot box based on libertarian values. There's already so few of you. What are you fighting over? It's people are fighting over who is most correct in a very esoteric set of standards when they're already like 2% of the voting bloc. So, anyway, let's move on. Next segment is Rand Paul tries to do his job. Now you probably saw in the news we did have a government shutdown that lasted for like 10 seconds. Yeah. No, it was like 10 seconds.
Oh, that's right. It was like a day.
Well, the only reason it shut down is because they wanted to vote that evening and they didn't get to because Rand Paul was running his mouth.
Wait, weren't there two?
Well, they averted one.
There was one.
Yeah, they averted.
That was short, and then the other one that was almost going to happen, and then it was like this last minute.
That's because sometimes nowadays, because one of the few jobs that Congress is supposed to actually do is have a budget, and we've reached a point now where things are so contentious and spending is so out of control. Not only do we not have yearly budgets a lot of times, sometimes we can't even come to agreement on a budget for next week.
Yeah.
And so that's why, if you're wondering how it is that you hear this government shutdown talk in the news so often, it's probably because when they inverted the last government shutdown, they only got us out to like next week. It's pretty ridiculous. But anyway, we were heading for another government shutdown. Everybody was ready to just vote on this massive increase in spending and move on. But Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, son of Ron Paul, he decides, well, you know what? I'm going to stand up and talk about this. And the reason I wanted to bring this up, because this is a few days old now, but the reason I wanted to bring this up is that, for one, this article, which is by Rachel Boulevard from The Hill, it's not just that he did it, and it's not just that ultimately they passed the bill anyway. It's that the simple fact that he even tried to do it got him so much scorn from the press and various OPEDs and contributors, from his cohorts in Congress, and other senators. All these different people are coming down on him, saying, "Well, he's misbehaving, so we're not gonna play ball with him because he's acting the way he's acting." Well, what do you mean acting the way he's acting? What, do you mean legislating? Like, do you mean trying to read bills before you pass them and actually debate them on the floor before votes are taken? That's all he's tried to do, and because he's trying to do his job as a senator, he's taken a lot of heat. So in this article, we talk about there's an additional $2 trillion black hole in the deficit.
Nice.
They got rid of the budget caps. They raised the debt ceiling. Just a ridiculous increase in spending. And it says, all told, the bill amounted to spending that was 311% higher than President Obama's final budget request. Rand Paul was one of the few people who really came out against this. And let's really break this down. So why was he trying this one-man filibuster? Why was he doing what he was doing on the Senate floor? For one, he wanted to be able to read the bill. Turns out this spending bill was 700 pages long, which of course means you can just assume no one read it.
Yeah.
No one read it. It was 700 pages. I'm not sure anyone read it. If they didn't vote until next year, they wouldn't have read it.
You got one day to read War and Peace, man.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, so they didn't read it. So he's just simply pointing out, well, we haven't read this bill, and he wanted to offer and what he was really arguing is he wanted to offer an amendment to the bill at the last minute, and all that amendment would do would be to restore budget caps. Of course, ultimately, the reason he wanted to do that was that this particular budget deal was going to be getting rid of budget caps. And so let's break this down. He says, in other words, he wanted to do his job. He wanted to read the bill, debate it in the Senate, and legislate. And what did he get for it? The disdain of Greater Washington. It's talking about, he was trashed in the press, ridiculed by reporters, and tarred and feathered by his own colleagues. Politico called it the dumbest showdown ever and the stupidest thing to happen in Congress in 3 weeks. Well, that's not even saying that much. The Associated Press labeled Paul a veteran Senate pest. They complained endlessly on Twitter about having to stay up late to cover the Senate floor. The Republican senator from South Dakota, John Thune, said that his refusal to give up his debate time and pass the bill a colossal waste of everyone's time. Jim Cornyn of Texas says that Paul's attempt to get an amendment vote were grossly irresponsible and that allowing him to have his vote would reward bad behavior. So
What?
So just keep in mind for everybody going forward, if you elect a representative who tries to represent you, and his idea of representing you is keeping your interests at heart, reading bills before they're passed, debating the bills on the floor, offering amendments where you think changes should be needed, or trying to postpone votes until these goals can be accomplished, you're grossly irresponsible and you're a veteran Senate pest. That's what the media and other Republicans in the Senate think of you.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily agree with Rand on every single issue out there that there is, but it just there's a very short list of guys both in the House and the Senate that you can say more often than not generally fall in line with where we are, generally want to cut spending, generally want to cut taxes, generally want to work on paying down the debt. But like I said, in this particular instance, I mean, this is just really basic issues. I mean, it'll go down in American politic lore forever, the old Nancy Pelosi statement before Obamacare was passed of, well, we have to pass it to see what's in it because no one had read the bill. I mean, and then of course you fast forward to this year, and you fast forward to Donald Trump's tax reform bill, and it was kind of the same issue there of, don't get me wrong, I'm always for cutting taxes, but it's kind of like the roles were flipped of, well, no one's read the bill. Well, you guys wouldn't let us read the bill, so now we're just going to pass this without reading the bill. I mean, we've reached this point of contentiousness in politics where because it's tribalism, because there's these different tribes, because there's these different teams, it has nothing to do about legislating anything. It has nothing to do
it's
with
like a game of tennis.
Yeah, there's and don't get me started on fiscal conservatism. And I know Rand Paul kind of followed up this whole event with really lambasting a lot of his colleagues and calling them hypocrites. It's saying, I mean, and rightfully so, saying, I mean, this is the definition of hypocrisy because these are the same people that when Obama was in office, just last presidential term, you know, they were fiscal conservatives. Oh boy, we can't approve this spending increase, and we have to think about the debt and all that. All of a sudden, that team is out of office. Your team is in office. Well, we have to pass that bill, and anyone who wants to debate it is wasting our time and being irresponsible. So, boy, if that wasn't a reminder to people who haven't seen the show in a while that we're not on either of those teams, I don't know what is. I love not being on one of the teams. I genuinely do. And I tell you what, they never give you reasons to second guess that at all. Mm-hmm. I would definitely make the argument. There's literally, you can probably count on just one or two hands the number of genuinely fiscally conservative members of Congress that there are at any given time. The ones who genuinely don't want to legislate morality, want to stay out of your business, don't want to steal your money and spend it, or at the very least want to have healthy discussion on where the money is going and have some responsibility.
Some accountability.
Yeah, and some accountability.
Yeah.
You probably could just count them on one or two hands at any given time. And this goes to show you as well is that even if you get elected on a platform as I just described, and you get in there and you try to do your job on the platform that you ran on based on the constituency that voted you in, then you will be nationally lambasted by the media, by your colleagues in Washington. It's damn. Yeah. So when they're not cheering on North Korea, they're and talking about who was sitting and who was standing during whose part of the parade.
I wave my flag. I wave my flag.
Yeah, while they're not doing all that nonsense, they're in. It's funny. I'm reminding of an old Tom Wood's point is that the only debate that you'll hear in Washington between Democrats and Republicans is, should the overall tax rate be 31% or should it be 32%? And no one's arguing 0%.
Yeah.
Because that's an actual change. 31 to 32, that's not a change. Even half or all of that going away, that's a real change. But no one's debating it. And of course, as you see, if you do debate it, they'll run you through the mud.
You'll be destroyed.
You'll be destroyed.
Yeah.
We don't have any answers. I'm just pointing.
We don't have answers.
Well, this is why I'm an anarcho-capitalist and I want to just burn down the whole government because I genuinely do because this is why you don't hear me. You don't hear me making a lot of arguments based on the Constitution says this, and this anymore. I used to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't make a lot of those arguments anymore just because this is what it got us. We have a constitution. We have a republic, and we have free elections and parties. Look what it got us. This is what it got us. So, I don't know. Some people aren't ready quite to take that whole step, as I put it. But there's a famous saying out there in our community that a minarchist is someone who believes in limited government. Right. A minarchist is just someone who hasn't quite made the whole transition yet. That's all that is. And I genuinely believe that because I used to be. I'm a small government guy and I believe in limited government and we should follow the founding fathers and the Constitution. But that didn't work. So anyway, that could be a whole other episode. Let's move on. We're getting close to the end now because at the end of the episode we're going to have the meme of the week.
Oh yeah.
So it's like we just have to rush through everything so we can get to the meme of the week. You know what I forgot to do?
What did you forget to do?
I forgot at the beginning of the episode I was going to talk about our Facebook and Twitter and Patreon and YouTube and all that.
Yeah, well, you're going to talk about that later too.
I know, but I was going to do it at the beginning and the end because because no one waits to the end because we suck.
We don't suck that bad.
No. It's.
We're pretty good, man. We have a good discussion going on.
I know. I like it. I like.
I listen. I learn. Like I said, I'm coming around to see your point of view on things.
Well, that's good.
It's interesting to listen to how you see the world, and
I imagine how quickly this show would crash and burn if after every single episode it was just Blake saying, "No, I'm not convinced." No, that sounds stupid. Get out of here.
No, I'm not. I'm never going to be that way. I'm interested in everybody's points of views, and I think that's one thing that's really cool about this dynamic is that I'm a conservative. I don't necessarily agree with you all the time, but I'm 100% behind what you believe, and you're right to believe that. And some things you say dissuades and makes me think about why I think the way I think. And hopefully, for those of you watching, maybe some of the things that he says does make you kind of consider the way you look at the world a little bit and think this way or that way. And I would love one day, just for the heck of it, to get a really extreme liberal on this stage here and talk with them and see what makes them think the way they think. Boy, wouldn't that be a fist fight? I'll keep you in the middle though, because
it's funny.
You and a guy in between.
It's funny that you would say that because I'd actually made a post recently on Reddit that was pointing out that it was actually a response to someone else's post where they were basically saying in no uncertain terms, this isn't hyperbole, it was literal statement that actually, I have no problem with taking from these people, and I have no problem with causing harm or death to these people because these people are hurting our society. Talking about people who are maybe libertarian or conservative or what have you. That I think society should be this way, and I think what you're doing is hurting society. Therefore, you're an enemy. Therefore, you should just be done away with. That's how they genuinely think. That's
pretty extreme, man.
Well, my answer to that statement is that I want everyone to get a really good look at that point of view. I want people to get a good look at that point of view because I believe, as a libertarian, I believe in the non-aggression principle.
Right.
That's a foundational. You want to talk about principles? That's a foundational principle of my thought.
Right.
Is non-aggression. And that comes down to as long as someone is not harming you, you will do no harm to them.
Exactly.
Golden rule.
Right.
These, in my mind, and I mean this when I say it, that if my principle is non-aggression, And I believe that you can go pursue whatever interest you want to pursue as long as you don't force me to be involved, as long as you don't steal from me, or hurt my loved ones. You want to go live in a communist utopia. You do it with your resources, but do not force me to do anything.
Right.
And the fact that I feel that way, that I'm open that I'm open to whatever you want to do. The key being you want to do it as long as it does not adversely affect me.
Right.
And the way that you see it is that, well, I've already deemed that your mere existence and adding to the philosophical conversation is an affront to me. Therefore, you should be removed. You're a monster.
Yeah.
I'm just say it like it is. You're a monster.
I agree with that. I agree that, part of being civil is being able to sit down and have a human conversation with someone who has an opposing point of view, and to discuss that point of view and to learn from one another and to grow from one another, rather to focus on what you don't have in common and try to find that common ground and see, what you can get from somebody else that makes you, gives you a better understanding of the world you live in,
Well,
but unfortunately, sometimes that's really one-sided.
You know what we need is at the beginning of the show, like when you click play on the video.
It's recorded, yeah.
Before like the music starts and the logo comes up, there should be like a little bump of, join the conversation of, or visit us on the web, and then we'll have all the links, and then the show starts.
Okay.
I just thought we should have that conversation right now while we're filming.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Why? We'll let you in on it.
Yeah.
Hey, this is an evolution.
This is a totally open production.
Yeah.
Like,
we make this stuff up as we go along, dude.
Yeah. If anybody,
except he does have a script right here. We do kind of read.
Well,
that sometimes.
it's just the list of topics.
It's a guide,
it's
not a rule.
Really a script.
Yeah, it's a guide, not a rule.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And normally we throw half of that away anyway because we get to talking about commies, and then there we are. So anyway.
So let's see what you got up on the screen right here. I'm going to punch up number 3.
So next section was, there you go. Jeff Sessions sucks. Jeff Sessions sucks.
That's not what it says.
Well, that's what mine says. So this comes to us from the Seattle Times. Jeff Sessions sucks. He just does. So Jeff Sessions' opioid crisis fix. Americans should opt for aspirin and tough it out. I don't know if you saw this in the news or not, but Jeff Sessions made some waves. Of course, he makes some waves for just being just a piece of human debris. He makes some waves for that. But he's very much anti-marijuana. I mean, he's like, if you're wondering, like, we've reached a point in the world where now states are legalizing it, and you know that it's just a matter of time before.
Yeah.
Because of course we believe that you own yourself and you own your body. You do with it whatever you want.
Right.
So we're anti-drug war. That's for dang sure.
Sure.
If you want to see the face of a guy who just symbolizes just authoritarianism, who symbolizes the drug war, who symbolizes countless dollars spent and murders and black market, that's the face right there, Jeff Sessions.
Easy.
I got to be careful because I could say something that makes this
easy.
not PG.
Relax.
Yeah.
Breathe.
I don't like Jeff Sessions.
Apparently you don't.
So he had made some waves recently because, of course, he's come not only is he against marijuana, I mean, he's against CBD oil. He's against everything.
Yeah.
He's against anything that can even be remotely associated with any type of drug. He's against it. And of course, we could have guests on and do whole broadcasts talking about people who, people with children who have issues with seizures or people who have certain types of cancer, and how, marijuana helps with pain, can help with healing, how CBD oil has helped younger people with issues with seizures and things like that.
Sure.
And so you see all of this potential promise. And then for this just human debris to come out, and he made a statement that was basically along the lines of, he feels like people are trying too hard to just get hooked on drugs. You know what those people ought to do? They ought to just take some aspirin and tough it out. Can you imagine? Let's scroll back up to that. What a handsome man. Can you imagine that guy walking? So you have a family member who is dying of cancer, who is in excruciating
pain.
pain.
Falling off of you, man. I'm having to clean it off the table.
Can you imagine? You have kids. You have a beautiful family. Can you imagine if your 1-year-old had issues with seizures and it was just I mean, it's just destroying not only his life, but it's such a burden to your family, only for you to find out that something like CBD oil helps to alleviate them,
Right.
alleviate their frequency, alleviate their severity.
Now, CBD oil is not completely illegal. It's not illegal in Tennessee from a medicinal. If it's prescribed by a doctor, it's legal in our state.
CBD oil is just legal.
CBD oil. Well, no, it's not. No, it's not. As a matter of fact, just yesterday in a town in Murfreesboro, which is not too far from here in Middle Tennessee, there was a big story about how the local police chief, and they got together and they had this whole thing where they went and they padlocked a whole lot of businesses that were vaping stores and so on and so forth for selling candy laced with CBD. So, and here in Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee, a doctor can prescribe that as a medicine for you, but you can't just buy that in a store.
Now, see, I was under the impression that in that particular case, CBD oil is legal, but it was illegal for them to be selling the different products that were late. Because
they were putting it in candy.
Because this is
Right.
what authoritarian government does: is
Right.
that if you figure out something the market wants, that people are willing to spend money on, and that circumvents what they have their money in, they'll just come take everything you own and
making it
padlock your
illegal.
door. And if you
Right.
fight them, they'll just blow your head off.
Exactly.
That's what they'll do.
So yeah, I mean, it's
And once again, let's go back to this guy.
Okay,
Look
let's
at this
go
guy.
back to
If
this
you
guy.
want to see a
Right,
picture of a
right.
guy who
Here you
thinks
go.
it's totally morally right that if you want to smoke a joint and he thinks you shouldn't, he has every right to blow your brains out.
Right.
That guy thinks that.
That guy
This
thinks
guy thinks that.
that guy thinks that.
So he made the statement. What I was getting back to is that, you've got young kids. Can you imagine having a child that was afflicted in that way, and then trying different medications, all these different prescription drugs,
Yeah.
and things aren't working, and life is miserable, and then someone says, well, let's try these different things, and then you try CBD oil
Right.
or
and it's
and-
illegal for you to get that
Yeah.
in your state, but that cures the problem.
yeah, and it's genuinely it's saving his life.
Right.
Genuinely is.
It is.
And then this man walks into your house and says, yeah, but I don't think you should have that, so give it to me or I'll kill you.
See, that ain't right. That's not right. It totally isn't right. And this is one of, in my personal opinion, I don't smoke pot. I'm not interested in that. That's not my thing. But I don't think that it's right that the government should say that nobody can do that. There is billions and billions of dollars being spent on putting some guy driving down the street in jail for 6 months for having 3 ounces of this stuff. What's he doing? He wasn't smoking it in his car. He just had it on his possession. Why is this guy got to go to jail? What's so wrong? How is that so different from alcohol? People who drink and drive do insane damage. We have all these laws and all these incredible regulations in place to keep people who keep alcohol under control. What's the difference? We're not talking about hard stuff that really is truly deadly, that kills you when you get addicted to it, like heroin. But that's my take on it. I don't understand this, and I'm looking at it this way. Our country is changing. At least there are states that are allowing that. Look, I'm not a pot smoker. I'll never smoke pot. I'm not interest in
Always
that.
took you as more just a pure cocaine kind of guy.
No, I mean drugs are not. I've never had that as an issue. In my
I'm
life, and I don't
joking.
ever think it will.
I'm joking.
But I'll say this: that's not something that I think that big government should tell you can't do.
Well, once again, our theme of the episode right from the very beginning is preferences versus principle. If
Right.
your principle is non-aggression, if your principle is personal property and self-ownership, you own you.
Right.
And what you do with you and the fruits of your labor are your business.
And as long as it doesn't
You
hurt
can't-
anybody else.
You can't possibly think you have the right to tell other people what to ingest or not ingest.
Right.
And you certainly can't think you have the right to do that under threat of death.
Right.
You can't possibly think that. If you believe in liberty, if you believe...
Here it goes. I'm not going to allow you to kill yourself, or I'll kill you.
Yeah. Well, I that's a whole other thing. We're gonna. It's been a while since we had an episode where we talked about cops. We'll talk about cops next week.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing. It's just that I have nothing but disdain for the people who have the genuine attitude of, I know what's better for you than you do, and I think that so much that I will actually use the threat of violence and death to stop you from doing what you want to do that affects no one else but you.
Exactly.
That's crazy. Like
stupidity.
That's just that. I mean, of course, people who think the way we think that's monstrous. That's
Yeah,
I would never do that. I would never point a gun at someone and say, "You've got to." You're
not allowed to kill yourself.
Yeah, we're going to go to Burger King instead of McDonald's, or I will kill you. Like, I would never do that.
That's stupid.
So, well, hold on. I wanted to read this quote real quick. This was posted on Facebook by Dr. Robert Higgs. Robert Higgs is a senior fellow at the Mises Institute. Really interesting guy. You should follow Dr. Higgs on Facebook if you haven't already. Very interesting guy. He's actually you want to talk about putting your money where your mouth is. He's someone who thinks so lowly. He has a lot of similar views and thinks very lowly of our government, that he left the country. And he wasn't one of these people that said he was going to.
Wow.
He moved to Mexico and renounced the citizen. I mean, like, whole 9 yards. He's out of there. So, hey, more love to him. But this is a statement he made specifically about Jeff Sessions.
Okay.
And so this is going to be more eloquent than me just grrr and yelling at the laptop screen. He said, "The question has often been raised, are politicians fools or charlatans? My answer is that most cases they're both. Jeff Sessions, however, goes one better.
Wow.
He is also a malevolent monster.
Wow.
He gives every indication of having his heart set on causing the most pain and suffering he can bring about in the world. The government, with this despicable madman as its chief legal officer, has hit absolute rock bottom on the decency scale."
Man.
Ooh.
That guy's harder than you.
Yeah, I know. I hope he never says that. Just replace his name and put yours. In most cases, Alan Mosley, however, goes like that. I would. Oh my goodness, I'm done. It's over for me. Yeah. So it's that magical time.
It's that magical time.
It's time for the meme of the week.
Here we go, folks. Are you ready? Everybody, hold on to your seats and boom.
When you file your income taxes for the first time after graduating college and getting a job.
Man, that'll change your mind.
For those who are just listening and not watching or don't understand, it's a picture of Bernie Sanders who morphs into Ron Paul.
Yep.
And I have definitely known some of those. The people who are they're very socialist in their societal wants and tendencies when they don't have any money.
Yeah.
When they all of a sudden have some property that they want to keep and to maintain, all of a sudden they're Ron Paul.
Yeah.
and that's not to say that I'm accusing poor people of being socialists and rich people of being libertarians. I know a lot of poor libertarians, by the way, and a lot of rich socialists.
That's a good one.
Like Bernie Sanders.
That's a good one. Look at that.
But yeah.
Look at it again.
Yes.
You can hear like a sound effect as it goes from smiling Bernie to.
Well, I know that's the best part too, is that it's smiling Bernie. And then it's solemn Ron Paul. Because I love it.
When reality hits. Oh boy.
So what did we learn this week?
Well, I definitely learned that sticking to one's guns is what matters, and we have way too many leaders who don't.
We have too much compromise and too many people with no principles.
Right.
We want to urge all of us as individuals to think more about individualism and to think more about having principles and sticking to them, as opposed to just making all of life's decisions one personal preference to the next.
Right.
We've learned that the mainstream media is falling over North Korea, the DPRK, which is a regime of murderers and thieves.
Because they put some pretty girl up there and everybody thinks all of a sudden they're normal.
I mean, she's not ugly. But I mean,
I don't think she's really related to dude, but that's just my personal opinion.
Well, it's been pointed out before. I believe it's Kim Jong-il was
her father.
Well, no, that's the previous. That's Kim Jong-un's father.
Right.
Kim Jong-il. What I'll bring out. I believe I remember this from Michael Malice's book, Dear Reader. He was actually the minister of the propaganda wing before he ascended to be the leader there.
Got you. When his dad
when his father died.
Right.
Yeah. So the point being is that I mean, it's kind of like they're painting this picture of, oh, she's not like that. She's wonderful, and yeah, they've got some problems, but there's some good there too, because look at her. No, she holds the position that the previous dictator held before he took office. So this idea that she's somehow she is a murder queen.
Well, there's a
of the
reference
highest
to old
regard.
G.I. Joe, who always hung out with Cobra, the Baroness. She was a pretty girl too, but
wow,
she was dangerous. Yep.
You've got to lay these things on me before we start the show so I can have like pictures of Cobra.
Now, there's a lot of you out there that's our age that'll know exactly what we're talking about.
Hey, don't say this our age business. Whoa! This is going way off the rails.
Look, I'm a lot older than you, all right?
So we also learned that Rand Paul tried to do his job as a senator, which was by all accounts a terrible move, according to Washington politicos.
He got thrown under the bus.
Got thrown under the bus. We learned that Alan doesn't like Jeff Sessions very much.
Not very much at all.
Oh.
In fact, I was getting a little nervous. I was about to move out of the way because you was swinging your arms like a...
Well, I tell you what, like Trump loves firing people so much, and he has openly criticized Jeff Sessions. Like, if there was anybody he should fire, it's Jeff Sessions.
Can he fire Jeff Sessions?
Of course he can fire Jeff Sessions.
I don't know.
That's a whole other thing.
Who knows?
And we learned that Robert Higgs can really lay the smack down in a very
eloquent
yeah.
manner.
There's no F-bombs in there, but you come away thinking, wow, that guy must be scum
that was
of the earth.
decimation.
Yeah.
That was nice.
So does that do it for this week?
No, hey, yeah, it's let's tell them about where they can find us.
Oh yeah,
well you tried before.
You know what?
But...
I'll tell them where they can find us, but we're also going to put that at the beginning of the episode.
Okay, we'll put it at the beginning of the episode, like he said.
So if you like what we're doing here at the Gold Standard and you want to support us because you don't want to see the lights go off and us like talking through cans with string, you can visit us on our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/TGS or TGS Alan Mosley.
Alan Mosley, right?
You can find me on Facebook, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley.
Right.
Where else are we? Of course, there's our YouTube channel, which YouTube has those weird URLs, but we'll have that.
We'll put that up one of these days. But if you're watching this right now, you probably already know how to find it.
The link is going to be underneath the video.
Yeah.
And soon we're going to be on lots of other platforms anyway.
We're working on it.
And our own site as well. Yep. And then finally, I've become more and more active on Twitter. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it is at Alan M. Mosley.
Okay.
I'm getting used to all this stuff.
Yeah, you're getting better
It's
at
one
it.
of those things where I signed up for accounts on various social media, and then I was like, well, what am I going to do with it?
Don't you wish there was one way to just combine them all together?
Well, now
you did this one. You just put this one blurb in there, and it puts it on all your social media sites. Somebody's now going to get really rich off that idea. I said it first. Now, don't do it.
I started a Twitter account like 4 years ago, and it had like 10 posts up until like a month ago, and now it has like hundreds.
Wow.
Because and followers
you're
as well.
You're tweeting. Look at twit.
Yeah, I'm a Twitter.
You're a twit.
Yeah, I'm a twit.
You're twitting. All right, brother. I think that'll.
Yep. I think that does it for this week. Join us next week when we're going to talk about, and then this is when you cover.
Next time.
Yeah, next time.
Next time.
It's going to be next week.
Hopefully, it'll be next week.
The hiatuses are over.
Okay.
The hiatuses are over. This when we said that this is a weekly show. And everyone thought, well, they must have been joking because it's not. Because it's not. It's gonna be a weekly show.
It's gonna be a weekly
starting
show.
now. I promise you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a wrap then. Thank you for being a part of the show today, and hey, we'll see you next time on the Gold Standard with Alan Mosley.
Join us next week.